It was around Halloween 2017 when James got the job. He'd just moved to a small town in Ontario, trying to get his life back together after a rough breakup and a failed move to Toronto. He didn't know anyone, didn't care to. He just needed work, something quiet and simple. So when the school board offered him a night janitor position at the old high school, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. he took it without thinking twice. It was only temporary, they said. The building had been closed for almost 2 years due to renovations, but they were reopening parts of it for adult night classes and community events. The regular janitor didn't want the late shift, and nobody else was stepping up. James didn't ask why. The school was massive, 3 floors, a basement, long tiled hallways, and classrooms that hadn't been touched since 2015. Some parts still smelled like stale paper and old floor polish. Others just smelled off. On his first night, the head security guard, an older guy named Ron, handed James the keys with a weird look. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "If you hear footsteps, ignore them. This place makes sounds." James blinked. "Footsteps?" Ron just nodded. "You'll see." Then he walked off. James laughed it off at first. He figured Ron was trying to mess with the new guy. But as the first hour passed, the silence started to eat at him. The kind of silence that made your heartbeat feel too loud. The only sounds were the wheels of his mop bucket and the occasional groan of old pipes overhead. Midnight hit, and James was up on the 3rd floor, pushing his mop through the science wing. The hallway was long, lined with lockers and classroom doors. The kind of place you'd expect to see in a horror movie. At one point, he heard something that made him stop cold, a metal slam. Like a locker door being kicked shut. He turned his head slowly. All the lockers were still. No movement. No sound now. He stood there for a second, listening. Nothing. Old buildings make noise, he muttered to himself, then kept mopping. But he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was nearby, watching him. He told himself it was just nerves. New place, night shift, Halloween vibes, easy to spook yourself. By 2 a.m., he was in the library. It was one of the creepiest parts of the building, tall ceilings, dark corners, and rows of books that hadn't been touched in years. He was emptying the trash cans when he heard it. A voice. A soft whisper, close but unclear. It sounded like, "It's not over." James stood straight. He held his breath. "Hello?" He called out. Nothing. He walked slowly between the shelves. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on empty chairs, closed books, nothing else. He waited. Silence. He told himself it had to be the air vents or maybe the wind outside. But deep down, he knew it didn't sound like that. It was a voice. Clear, direct, and close. When his shift ended at 4 a.m., he practically ran to his car. As he drove home through the quiet back roads, something felt wrong. Like he hadn't really left the school behind. Like something had followed him. The next night, he came back. He wasn't the kind of guy to quit over some noise. But he was jumpy. Every time a door creaked or his mop dragged too loud, his heart jumped. Just after 1:30 a.m., while passing by the gymnasium, James noticed the light above the gym door flickering. He walked over, glanced through the tiny rectangular window, and froze. Inside the gym, standing at the far end, was a figure. Not moving. Just standing, facing the wall. James couldn't breathe. The lights inside flickered again. The figure didn't turn, didn't move, didn't do anything. He slowly backed away, down the hall, trying not to make a sound. He didn't even blink. When he reached the side exit, he pushed the door open and stepped into the cold night air. The door thudded shut behind him. He stood there, shaking. 10 minutes later, he went back. The gym was dark now. Empty. He told himself. It had to be a mannequin, maybe part of an old gym class setup. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him. But he knew what he saw. That wasn't a mannequin. It was a person. A real one, or something that looked too real. He didn't tell anyone. Didn't quit. Instead, he started carrying a flashlight even when the hallways were lit. He changed his routine, stuck to the first and second floors, avoided the gym completely, and never went near the basement. There was something wrong in that school, and whatever it was, it hadn't shown its full face yet, but James could feel it. Every time he stepped into that building, it was waiting. James kept telling himself he could handle it. He needed the paycheck. He needed the quiet. And honestly, part of him felt stupid for being afraid of shadows and whispers. It was 2017, not a horror movie. But each night, the school felt heavier, like the air itself was watching him. By the second week, he was exhausted. He barely slept during the day. His dreams were weird, blurry hallways, footsteps chasing him, locker doors slamming over and over. One night, he dreamed of a girl standing at the end of the third-floor hallway. She was pale, wet, and barefoot. Her mouth opened like she was screaming, but there was no sound. James woke up sweating. Didn't sleep again that day. That night, something new happened. He was walking past the gym again. He'd been avoiding it, but the lights were on and he had to do his rounds. He told himself maybe someone forgot to shut them off. As he passed, he glanced through the window and stopped. The lights were flickering again. But this time, there were 3 figures standing in the far corner. All of them faced the wall. No movement. No sound. James didn't even try to open the door. He stepped back, heart thudding, and whispered to himself, "Nope, not tonight." He walked away fast and didn't look back. Later, around 2:45 a.m., he was on the second floor, near the history wing, when he thought he heard something. A giggle. A girl's voice, quick and sharp like it came from right behind him. He turned fast, no one there. He stared down the hallway. Then he noticed it. A locker hanging slightly open. He didn't remember seeing it earlier. Carefully, James stepped closer. He reached out and slowly pulled it open. Inside was nothing except an old pair of shoes. Girl shoes. The style looked outdated, like something from the 90s. The insoles were dusty. But what really got him was the smell. Damp, like mildew and copper. The scent hit him hard, and he slammed the locker shut. As he backed away, he heard it again. That laugh. Same voice. Farther down the hall now. James turned and ran. Full speed. He didn't care what it looked like. By now, James was certain something was wrong with the school. He wasn't just spooked, he was being watched. Followed. Like whatever haunted that place knew he was there and was getting bolder. The worst part? He couldn't explain it to anyone. Who would believe him? But then something strange happened. On night 7, James met Cheryl. She was a night class teacher, probably in her early 40s. Friendly, calm. She worked a few late nights prepping lesson plans and classroom materials. They only crossed paths briefly. She'd wave, smile, sometimes make small talk about the weather or the vending machines always being broken. James didn't say anything about what he'd seen. He didn't want to sound insane, but her presence helped. It made the place feel a little less dead. Until the night she didn't leave. It was around 12:15 a.m. James saw Cheryl walking out of room 104 carrying a bag. She smiled and waved like usual. "Night, James." "Take care," he replied. He kept mopping the hallway, but at 1:30, while taking out trash near the back exit, he noticed her car was still in the lot. Lights off. Windows fogged, but definitely still there. He walked back inside, confused. Maybe she forgot something? He checked room 104 empty. The lights were off. He called her name down the hallway. No answer. That's when he saw it on the second floor. Room 204. The light was on. It was an old art room, not in use anymore. Supposedly sealed off due to water damage, though James had never seen any. He climbed the stairs slowly. When he reached the room, the door was slightly ajar. He peeked inside. And froze. The chalkboard was covered in words, scratched in messy, frantic handwriting, "Don't trust the walls." Over and over, hundreds of times. James stepped inside, chilled to the bone. The air felt damp and heavy, like he was underwater. He heard it then crying soft and muffled. It was coming from the supply closet at the back of the room. He stepped closer. The door was shut. "Cheryl?" he asked quietly. No reply. He gripped the handle and opened it fast. Nothing. Just shelves of old paint cans, brushes, and construction paper. And one photo. It was taped to the wall at the back of the closet. Old. Faded. A black and white group picture of students, 4 kids in total. 3 boys, 1 girl in the middle, smiling. The girl had been circled in red ink. Her face was scratched out. Underneath, a handwritten label, "Art Club, Class of '97. James stared at it. Why was this hidden in a sealed-off room? The crying had stopped. The room was silent, now too silent. He grabbed the photo and backed out. As he turned off the light, he thought he saw movement in the corner of the room. Just for a second. But when he looked, nothing. The next morning, James brought the photo to the school office. He asked one of the older administrators if she recognized anyone. When she saw the girl in the center, her face went pale. "I know that picture," she said quietly. "That girl, she disappeared years ago after a night class. Never found. Police said she was last seen in the school." James didn't say a word. He just nodded, walked out, and got in his car. He looked at the photo again before driving home. And for the first time, he realized his hands were shaking. James knew something was wrong with the school, but now he wasn't just creeped out. He was scared. Deep down, bone deep, can't sleep with the lights off, scared. After what happened in room 204, the whispers, the chalkboard, the photo, he couldn't pretend anymore. This wasn't just a creepy building with bad lighting and creaky pipes. Something else was here. And it was getting bolder. The photo stayed with him, not just in his hands, but in his mind. That scratched-out girl, circled in red. The crying. From the closet. It all felt connected. He'd looked at the label at the bottom at least a dozen times. Art Club, Class of '97. Who was she? Why was her picture hidden like that? And why did the school board act like they didn't know? James came in the next night on edge. He didn't tell anyone what had happened. The older staff already looked at him funny. He wasn't about to tell them, he thought. Ghosts were playing with chalk in the art room. But he had to know more. He started poking around, quietly, between shifts. He checked old staff logs, classroom files, even found a dusty yearbook in the teacher's lounge. There she was. Emily Rowe, Junior Art Club President. Creative and full of life, according to the caption. Gone without a trace in fall of '97. No one ever found her. James stared at her photo for a long time. She looked familiar somehow, like he'd seen her face in a dream. That night, around 12:30 a.m., Cheryl came in. James had barely seen her since the "Don't Trust the Walls" night. She waved like nothing was wrong, carrying her usual tote bag, humming softly as she headed toward room 104. James watched her go. Around 1:45 a.m., he went out to the parking lot for a break and froze. Cheryl's car was still there. Lights off, doors locked. Same as last time. Deja vu hit him like a punch to the chest. He waited a minute. Maybe she forgot something again, but something didn't sit right. He walked back inside fast. Room 104 was dark, empty. No bag. No Cheryl? Cheryl? He called out. His voice echoed down the hallway. Nothing. Then he saw it again. The light. Room 204. The old art room. It was on, wide open. James stared up the stairs. His body screamed not to go, but he did anyway. Something told him he had to dot when he stepped into the room. It looked different. The board was wiped clean dot, but now the desks were arranged in a perfect circle, and in the center an old easel, a canvas on it, covered with a white sheet. James stepped forward, pulled the sheet off. It was a painting. An oil portrait of a girl in a red sweater, blonde hair, soft smile. He felt his breath catch. It was Emily. Same face as the yearbook, same vibe, same eyes, only in this painting she wasn't smiling. Her eyes looked terrified, and in the background, barely visible, was a dark, shadowy shape, just a silhouette behind her shoulder. Watching her, he took a step back. And then the door slammed shut. Hard. James ran to it, twisted the handle. It was locked. He turned. The lights flickered, one by one. The desks began to creak, sliding outward, making space in the center. Like something invisible was stepping forward. James backed into a corner, gripping his flashlight. That's when he heard it. A voice, "You saw her," whispered, dry, right behind him. He turned fast. No one there. Then again, closer. She never left. His flashlight started to flicker. He aimed it at the painting. Emily's expression had changed. Her mouth was open, like she was screaming. Her eyes were now looking directly at him. James panicked. He kicked the door hard. Once, twice. On the third kick, it burst open. He bolted out of the room, ran down the stairs, didn't stop until he reached the exit doors. Outside, in the cold night air, he stood hunched over, gasping. Then he remembered Cheryl. He turned, looked back at the building. Then at the parking lot. Her car was gone, like it had never been there. No headlights, no engine sound, nothing. Just gone. The next day, James called the school board office. He asked about Cheryl. The receptionist paused, then said, "We don't have any staff member by that name." James froze. Cheryl. Short, brown hair, mid-40s. Night classes, room 104? Silence. There hasn't been a night class scheduled here in over 6 months. We stopped using that room due to water damage. James hung up. He sat in his kitchen for hours, trying to piece it all together. Emily. Room 204. The voices. The photo. Cheryl. Was she even real? Or something else? Something wearing her face? That night, James didn't go to work. He packed his things, called the school board, quit the job. They didn't even ask why. Before he left town, he made one last stop, a local library. In their archives, he found a small article from 1997. Teen girl vanishes from local school. Last seen after night class. The photo attached? Emily. Row. Underneath the article, scribbled in faded pencil, were 5 words. She's still in there, waiting. James drove straight out of town. He never looked back, but some nights, when he's alone and everything's quiet, he swears he hears a voice right behind him. Soft, familiar. You saw her. James thought he was free, after quitting the job, leaving town, and swearing never to return. He believed he could forget the haunted school and whatever had latched onto it. The girl in the painting, the crying, the photo, the fake teacher. All of it. He moved 4 hours north, found a new apartment, took a daytime job stocking shelves at a warehouse. Boring, quiet, safe. No more night shifts. No more long hallways. No more locked doors that closed on their own. But it didn't matter. The nightmares followed him. At first, it was just bad dreams. Emily standing outside his bedroom window, soaked and barefoot, whispering, "I'm still here." Then he'd wake up to his alarm clock flashing 2:04 a.m. every single night. Same time, same feeling. Like something was watching him. He unplugged the clock. It still blinked. Then, real things started happening. He found old school papers in his apartment, torn fragments of attendance sheets, locker numbers, even a class schedule. None of it was his. The names listed were the same every time: Emily Rowe, Shannon Walker, Alex Klein, and Mark Reyes. All part of the class of '97 art club. The same names from the photo he'd found in the closet. One night, after getting home from work, James opened his apartment door and immediately stopped. His kitchen chairs had been arranged into a circle, like in room 204, and on the counter, sitting perfectly upright, was a Polaroid photo. Shaky hands. He picked it up. The picture showed him asleep. In bed, someone or something had been inside. James couldn't breathe. He backed out of the apartment and slept in his car. The next morning, he drove to the nearest library and pulled up every article he could find on Emily Rowe. Only one new detail surfaced. Her art teacher, a man named Mr. Delvin, had been questioned in connection with her disappearance. Never charged. He left town a year later and was never heard from again. There were rumors, whispers of something more. That Emily had been working on a final project before she vanished, a series of disturbing self-portraits, each one darker than the last. One teacher claimed she'd told him, "They watch me when I paint." James sat in the library for hours, staring at that line. That night, he dreamed he was walking through the school again. Only now, it was flooded ankle-deep water, hallways warped and groaning. He could hear lockers banging in the distance, echoing through the building like a heartbeat. Then he saw her. Emily. Standing in the center of the flooded gym, dripping wet. Smiling. And behind her, dozens of shadowy figures. Watching. Waiting. He woke up gasping. That was the last straw. James decided to go back. Not for work, but for answers. If he didn't face it now, it would never stop. He didn't believe in ghosts, not really, but he knew what he saw. And he needed to know why it had chosen him. It was a Sunday when he returned to the school. Cold. Overcast. The parking lot was empty. The building looked even worse than he remembered. Half the windows boarded up, graffiti on the walls. No cars, no sign of life. It had been fully shut down just a few months after he quit. He walked up to the main doors. They were unlocked. Inside, the air was stale, heavy. As he stepped in, the fluorescent lights above him flickered, then went dark. Of course. He clicked on his flashlight and made his way to the second floor. Room 204. The art room. The door was open. The room looked untouched. Same desks, same chalkboard. But the easel was gone. In its place, on the floor, was a single chair, and sitting on that chair, Emily, or something that looked like her. She was pale, her eyes wide and empty. Her skin cracked like old paint. She didn't blink, didn't move. Then she whispered, "You came back." James stepped back. "What do you want?" Her head twitched. "He's still here?" "Who?" "Mr. Delvin." Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him. The temperature dropped instantly. And from the back of the room, James heard footsteps. Slow, heavy. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, faceless like a smear of shadow, wearing a teacher's coat. She wouldn't stop painting, it said. Its voice was low, rotten, so I made her part of the canvas. James backed into the corner. The lights flickered. The room warped. The desks began to melt, dripping into the floor like wax. Emily stood. Her body cracked, splintered. "Help me." James ran. He charged the door and burst through it, sprinting down the hallway, tripping over debris and slipping on the wet, warped tiles. He didn't stop until he hit the main exit. Outside, the cold air hit him like a slap. He turned back once, and through the glass he saw her. Emily. Watching. Behind her, that thing Mr. Delvin stood with one hand on her shoulder. James drove straight out of town. It's been 5 years. James moved again. Changed his name. Lives in a completely different province now. He hasn't stepped into a school since, but sometimes, at night, he'll find strange papers slipped under his door. Old attendance sheets, or a photo of a red sweater. Once he found a chalk message scrawled on his bathroom mirror. She never finished the painting. He scrubbed it off. Moved again. But he knows it's not over, because no matter where he goes at exactly 2:04 a.m., he hears it, the click of a locker, and a whisper right behind him. Class isn't dismissed.